Hey, hello everybody. This is Jake Wynn, Director of Interpretation at the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. I am here with historian and author Ryan Quint. We are going to be talking today about what happened where we're standing right here on July 9th, 1864 during the Battle of Monocacy. This is a part of our On Tour series of videos. This is a playlist on the museum's YouTube channel where you can find other videos related to Monocacy and the campaign in 1864. We're going to be talking about the medical aspects in addition to the military campaign that takes place here in the summer of 1864. We are just a few miles south of the museum's location in downtown Frederick, Maryland. So this seemed like a natural place to come out and bring our On Tour series. You can find that playlist on our YouTube channel, and at the conclusion of this video you'll see a link to where you can watch the next one in the series. You can support our efforts here on YouTube by liking this video, by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and you can go down below and you can find where you can also support the Monocacy National Battlefield Foundation, who did assist us in pulling together this month's On Tour series. So I am here with Ryan Quint, who is the historian and author extraordinaire who published a book through the Emerging Civil War series on the Battle of Monocacy, Determined to Stand and Fight. You can find this book if you're interested in what we talk about today in the next couple of videos. You can purchase this book by going to the link down below, which will take you to the National Museum of Civil War Medicine's online store. So you can get your own copy of this, learn all about this, this battle from Ryan. Does incredible research. Great writer as well to tell this incredible story. So Ryan, let's dive into our story here at the Worthington Farm. Can you tell us a little bit about where we are and what happened here during the Battle of Monocacy?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Let me start by saying that was an absolutely amazing display of dexterity to catch that book. What you all don't know is that was take 35. Where we are right now is we are at the Worthington house behind me. John Worthington buys the property about a year and a half into the Civil War, and ironically to get away from the Civil War. The Worthingtons lived in Baltimore in 1861, and Worthington was tired of the political kind of tension in Baltimore, and so he figures, let me move the family out to Frederick, Maryland. What happens in Frederick, Maryland? It's going to be quiet. And they move here just in time for Antietam and Gettysburg, and then July 1864, the Battle of Monocacy. The family renames the property called Riverside View Farm because the Monocacy River itself is behind me and to my left down the hilltop down here. And so for as far as the battle is concerned, you may have watched one of the earlier videos with Park Ranger Tracy Evans, and she talks about how Confederate cavalry, Confederate mounted troopers try to find the left flank of the United States forces here. And they do so by crossing the Monocacy River down below us at a place known as the Worthington-McKinney Ford. And so John McCausland, who commands these Virginian mounted troopers, comes up to the hilltop here, and in front of him he can see the left flank of the Federal forces commanded by Lew Wallace. McCausland thinks they're militia or short-term enlistment forces, and so he orders a direct attack right down the hill behind the camera towards those Federal forces. What he doesn't know is that they are experienced veterans of the 6th Army Corps, Army of the Potomac. Those Federal soldiers willingly and patiently allow the Virginians to get within about 100 yards or so, and then open fire a withering volley at extremely close range. McCausland's men suffer high casualties. They retreat up to the farm here, they reform, they try again, they get pushed back up, and there's really kind of an impasse here until John B. Gordon's Confederate Division of Infantry arrive around 3:30. So from about 12 o'clock to around 2:30, it's this Federal infantry versus Confederate dismounted cavalry kind of engaging and duking it out in these fields around the camera, behind the camera. The Worthington family itself is inside the home. John Worthington, the patriarch, is watching the battle from the attic. His family, his children, his wife are down in the basement. A really cool primary source account is from Glenn Worthington, who was 5 or 6 at the time. Roughly almost 70 years later, Glenn Worthington, now a respected judge in Frederick, will write one of the first accounts of the battle known as Fighting for Time. And he talks about his experiences watching the battle. He says, Glenn Worthington says, when the Federal forces opened fire against McCausland, it was as if the ground opened up and swallowed all all of these Confederate soldiers. As the Confederate soldiers retreat back, the officers are trying to rally them, and they're hitting them on the backs with their swords, and Glenn's mother says it means death to them either way. They can either get shot or they're being hit by their own officers. And so the battle kind of swirls around here. This becomes kind of the epicenter of the battle for a couple of hours. Of course, with that comes casualties, comes results of the battle. The Worthington Farm will be used as a field hospital for a short period of time in the late afternoon and into early July 10th before the Confederate Army leaves here. And so the Worthington Farm is smack dab in the battle. You might be able to see the cannon in the distance, also used as a Confederate artillery platform during the battle. So you've got it all right here, right going on. The last thing I'll mention is Glenn Worthington, that young boy himself, becomes a casualty. He's a curious child, and he sees debris on the battlefield, and he goes to grab a bayonet. And in doing so, he inadvertently starts a fire or causes a fire to be rekindled, and a nearby cartridge goes off, and it badly burns him in the face. John Worthington, his father, carries the badly burned Glenn to a nearby surgeon, who takes the time, even amongst this carnage, to treat Glenn Worthington. He's blinded for a couple of days but recovers, and so even the young boy becomes a part of the story here in the greater theme of things.
Yeah, it's interesting just thinking about the debris on the battlefield. Bring this up to say we have a video on our YouTube channel that is all about landmines in the Civil War, which were utilized during the conflict. Just to say that these battlefields here at Monocacy, Antietam is a great example, also here in Maryland, where there is ordnance left buried, and in some cases unburied, on the battlefield for years after these battles, provided essentially a public health risk, because these cannonballs, shells, were still very much live, and so people would pick them up, hit them with farm equipment, they would explode. People are injured and killed even decades after the Civil War is over on battlefields like this. There is an account from years after the Battle of Monocacy where one of those shells did go off here on these battlefields. So that is an element that is an interesting side to think of young Glenn Worthington playing with looking at this debris on the battlefield, how dangerous that could be. I did just want to note, as with all of these on-tour series of videos, we like to come out here onto the battlefield and to talk about, of course, the military situation, what happened here in regards to troop movements, to touch on that, because that helps you to kind of visualize the scene as it would have been during the battle, where we're standing, as Ryan said, this would be a pretty chaotic scene if you're here on July 9th, 1864. But this also gives us the opportunity to talk about kind of the evolution of battlefield medicine by this point in the war. By 1864, we have seen years of conflict, years of battles, much larger than this relatively small-scale fight at Monocacy, as strategically important as it is. And there have been some major innovations in regards to battlefield medicine, and the Worthington Farm is going to play a part in that. One of those elements is that when the Confederate Army is going to first arrive here, and it is unclear as to where exactly federal troops are going to be, or where exactly are you going to set up your field hospital. Well, this probably would not have been a field hospital right at the offing. Probably would have been more of a dressing station, an aid station, where there would be Confederate medical personnel stationed that would be able to bind up wounds of the soldiers coming back from the front lines. And then as the battle lines start to solidify and you start to see a clear delineation of where these forces are as they begin to duke it out, then as this becomes a kind of a safer location, that's when it's going to step into that next level in the echelons of care, as the modern term is related, that next step back to a field hospital, that you'll have more medical personnel, more supplies being brought up. And they'll turn the house, but also the grounds around, into the hospital. By 1864, U.S. Army surgeons as well as Confederate surgeons have begun to move away from the beginning of the war, where interiors of buildings were used as hospitals. They've gone to more of tent hospitals, bringing their equipment up and performing surgeries, performing operations outside, because that allows for more fresh air, more of a breeze to come through, and there is a notion that fresh air cleanliness will provide a better environment for healing, even at the front lines of a war. So despite the fact that you would have Confederate surgeons operating here with bloodied hands, uncleaned instruments, there is a notion that there is cleanliness that is important to operating in these, not in regards to, of course, the equipment and the hands that they're using, but in regards to the air that they're breathing and that the patients are breathing. And then from here, patients are going to be taken, in many cases, those who are not mobile. Those are the Confederate wounded who are not mobile enough to kind of follow along, the walking wounded to follow along with Early's march. And many of the Confederate wounded, as well as the U.S. Army wounded, we'll talk a little bit more about, are going to end up at U.S. General Hospital number 1 in downtown Frederick, Maryland, just a few miles from here and just a few blocks away from the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. Ryan, do you have any last thoughts here?
No, I think we're all set. The last thing I'll mention is kind of a prelude for the next video. We talked about John B. Gordon's division coming up. He's going to be forming up in these fields around 3:30 in the afternoon. And so the kind of climactic moment of the battle is where we're going next. We'll see you all at the Thomas Farm.
Excellent. We'll see you there.